This is a sample chapter from Fitton Books. The Dust of Mars, Chapter 1. Despite his lack of character, Jason Rapp did not deserve a death sentence. I had enjoyed a pleasant shuttle flight from Orbitus to Mars until Rapp's call rattled my zip connection. The wind howled and sand grains patted against his rover's bubble top, suggesting a severe dust storm. He said that someone in a silver terrain suit, brandishing a pinpoint pulsar, had hiked through the Martian ridge shadows. Rapp sensed a murderous intent. At first, I wanted to chide him for not meeting me for breakfast on Orbitus. Just 10 hours ago, he slipped me important information coinciding with my trip to Mars about a cover-up in the Turcotte ore refining operation on the planet. The security chief for the Turcotte operation told me the same thing. Now my attention was directed toward Rapp's pleas for help. As the pinpoint was aimed at the bubble, he frantically described the tinted face shield of his potential killer. 25 years at the Space Investigative Bureau had alerted me to the shrill crescendo of a pinpoint pulsar's thin red beam. I heard the bubble rip as Rapp cried out for mercy. The outward gush of air into the cold, diminished Martian atmosphere was soon replaced by his mournful whimper. He pushed out my name in his last remaining gasps. Cobb. Rapp, can you hear me? I sat up fully in the recliner and gripped my perforated zip. The signal went out. Rapp! Rapp! The pulverizing sand and wind gusts grew louder now. I leaned toward the shuttle's oval portal. Behind the backdrop of stars, Mars cast a rusty glow beyond the shuttle's gray wing. Rapp was dead, thousands of kilometers away on the planet's surface. I flipped up the recliner tray as images of Rapp in his dark tuxedo at Orbitus's blackjack tables shot through my brain like bursts from the pinpoint. My shoes connected to the floor forces and I started down the aisle. The forward hatch was sealed. One of the attendants, an affable young woman with bouncy blonde hair, stared from the adjacent alcove and flashed her white teeth before she spoke.
Mr. Cobb, if you're looking for the bathroom, it's to the rear of this section.
I need to speak with a navigator, I said brusquely.
The navigator?
She asked as if the question had transcended her usual answers about food, drink, or rester pillows.
I don't understand.
Miss, I'm a private investigator, a former SIB agent. One of my clients is in trouble on the planet. I need the navigator's assistance.
Yes, of course.
I removed my license, retired bureau discs, and placed them in her smooth palm. Here, let the pilot check these. She squinted, seemed confused, and complied with my request. Her long red fingernails tapped out a code on the side panel. The hatch slid open and remained open as she walked down the narrow corridor. Silhouetted cabin figures were positioned in front of glowing console panel lights and the encroaching brown Martian sphere. I glanced briefly at the hint of the upper ice caps as I exhaled. The attendant leaned over a man seated at a darkened alcove containing numerous window monitors. She held out her hand and pointed toward me as she spoke. The man glanced at me and took both discs from her hand. I could see him lean over one of the window screens. Then he nodded and waved me up front. I checked my zip window, set to standard time at the Livingston Dome. It was 1:44 p.m. I squeezed my large frame through the hatch and moved sideways down the connector corridor. The young man stood in his bright blue neckliner and dark pants. He extended his hand quickly, and I wondered if he approved of my long bureau record. Mr. Cobb, what can I do for you? I studied his black name badge embroidered into his neckliner at the shoulder. Moss, I need an enhanced scan of the planet's surface. I just received a distress call from a potential informant, and I think he's been murdered. I handed him my zip. Last call coordinates are locked in my zip memory. Moss nodded once and positioned my zip on his station counter. He immediately hooked in a relay, punched a few buttons on the panel, and a Mercator map of Mars appeared on his window monitor. A green dot flashed in the northern hemisphere, center of the Elysium Planitia. I recognized the area because it was my destination. Well, he's 18 kilometers out from the Livingston Dome, on Turcotte land. It looks like there's an industrial plant 5 kilometers back and another one 12 kilometers ahead. Actual heading is 35.2 north and 108 west longitude. Well, I was afraid of that. What do you mean? Asked Moss. Ongoing investigation, son. Can you bring me an image from that signal center? Well, that will not be a problem, sir. Excellent. As he worked the panels under the huge window monitor, I unclipped my zip and placed a call to John Patno in Livingston's security office. Moss now had a full picture of Mars, and he adjusted the clarity as my zip buzzed. After a brief rustling on the other end, Patno's raspy voice came over my zip speaker.
John Patno.
John, this is Harry.
Harry, my boy. Calling to put in your dinner menu at the Excelsior?
They know what I like, John. We have a problem on the other side of IP5, 12 kilometers toward IP7. Patno cleared his throat and his voice assumed its professional, authoritative tone.
Well, what happened?
Guy named Jason Rapp. He has info on problems at IP5. Somebody just shot a pinpoint at him, right through his rover bubble.
Oh, poppycock.
I'm not kidding, John. You need to get somebody over there. The navigator has the area on the screen. It's a bad dust storm. Moss reduced the screen to a 600 square kilometer resolution. The Livingston Dome and the smaller surrounding support domes were clear, but across the brown rock-strewn crater-punched desert, a wispy gray dust cloud measuring several hundred kilometers back swirled toward IP5 and the support domes. Tracking a potential killer was now impossible. I heard Patno calling the troopers on another zip. Then he came back on my zip connection.
Harry, I can visibly see that storm.
Rover sight is in the thick of it. Listen, I'll request that Kranz and some troopers head into that storm. Kranz? I grit my teeth. Kranz was an obnoxious, power-hungry puppet of Norman Burkhart. As Livingston's security chief, Burkhart was bought and paid for by the Turcottes. Well, does it have to be Kranz?
Well, he's the only one crazy enough to fly into a dust storm, besides you and me.
I thought back to the numerous times Kranz had interfered with my investigations, both with the Bureau and after I retired. You better call Ed Stanton, too. He's the Turcotte security chief. Let him know what's going on.
I'll call him. Look, you and I will trace the IP7 Livingston Road.
What, from above that storm? I asked as Moss scanned the storm edges. Readings showed the dust had advanced another kilometer toward Livingston. This is a bad storm, said Moss. Patno cleared his throat.
Harry, I'll meet you at the port. What is your ETA?
4:25, said Moss.
I heard him. I'm going to try and get a security satellite image. Maybe we can get scans through that storm.
Brief me, I'm not going anywhere. I shut off the zip and turned to Moss. Thanks for your help, Captain. Anytime, sir. We'll let you know if the storm clears. After thanking both Moss and the attendant, I retreated down the corridor. I glanced at the packed shuttle, sat in the recliner, and folded my arms across my chest. Last night was a night of hope and promise. When I had wandered from my hotel room into the Orbitus casinos, I saw Ariana Cervantes' fluffy dark hair and deep eyes. She sipped the contents of a thin glass at the restaurant overlooking the gambling floor. My stomach tingled, and I stalled above the gambling hall. No friend or foe could thrill me so quickly and so fully. I leaned on the brass railing. Amidst a plethora of conversation, crashing slot machine levers, blackjack collars, and music, she tilted her head back slightly and, with a gracious smile, seemed amused by her young dinner companion. Even from across the floor, her skin was luminous, and gold rings, gaping with colorful gems, adorned her fingers. 10 years had passed since we spent 4 days alone in the Barsoom Dome across the Valles Marineris canyons. My professional instinct, responsible for rational decisions during my career with the Bureau, held me back, but a romantic flair, filled with desire and intense longing, pushed me forward. I descended the stairs onto the smooth gambling room carpet and stepped between the slot machines. The men and women strenuously shifted their slot machine levers, but I focused on Ariana's wide cheekbones and stunning brown eyes. I cautioned myself against approaching this woman. Near the blackjack table, a tall, handsome man, maybe 10 years younger than me, handed over a wad of blue droits to the caller. Frustration revealed itself in the hardening crevice developing down his sloping forehead. His huge fists were closed, and he shook his head as he turned. "Damn," he said loud enough for me to hear him. His blue eyes brightened, and he pointed, calling out my name through the crowd noise, but I did not know him. I pretended not to hear him and eyed Ariana, now enjoying a colorful sherbet at the upper table. He finally reached me and grabbed my arm as I passed the table. I looked down at his hand, and he breathed rapidly. "You're Harry Cobb." "And who the hell are you?" I asked, my heart still beating in anticipation of seeing Ariana again. His teeth were straight and white. "A man who can help you." "I don't like riddles, mister," I told him. "Who are you?" "Jason Rapp." He shook my hand tightly as if he were holding on for comfort. "Stanton called you to check the Turcotte iron smelting plant." "Yeah, so what?" "I know the truth about what really happened in that plant over the last year." I raised my brows, viewing Ariana out of the corner of my eye. "And what, pray tell, is that?" Confidence left his face, and his teeth chafed at his lips. "I can't do that right now." "You're wasting my time." I started across the floor again. "Wait, there are financial considerations here." "You just lost a wad full of droits," I said, and I faced him squarely. "Listen, Stanton is concerned product was not properly manufactured, and he can't prove anything because it happened months ago." "What do you mean?" Rapp rubbed his mouth. "Look, Cobb, meet me in the breakfast room here at the hotel. What time are you on?" Livingston Standard. I gave him my zip address. His shifting eyes indicated a man under a great deal of pressure. He told me to meet him at 7 a.m. and then bolted back to the gaming tables. I alternated glances between Ariana and Rapp and continued across the room. Less than 50 feet above me, Ariana sat in a sleeveless blue velvet dress, and her layered dark hair was nestled on her bare shoulders. Again, I wanted to flee to the hotel shops, but instead trudged up the marble staircase as Oriental runner. I slowly rose above the leafy plants atop the retaining wall. Within the aromatic cuisine, the small restaurant's patrons were isolated within a cone of soft classical music, clean air, and red sensual light. I reached the upper level. Ariana slowly lowered her glass when she saw me. The young man held her wrist as she turned. She set her glass on the linen table and stood. Her friend watched her saunter around the restaurant tables. She was not a tall woman, but had a slim waist and a well-defined figure, accentuated by the form-fitting dress down to the knee. Her lips parted and her brown eyes filled as she extended her hands. Then she hugged me. "God, I never thought I'd see you again, Harry." Her sensual perfume and warm touch brought me back to the chateau inside the bassoon dome. I remembered nestling against her smooth white skin as the warm breezes wafted through the chateau. "Why did you leave, Ariana?" "Some things are better left in the past." Her eyes brightened and she smiled. "But you're here now." "I saw you from across the floor." She looped her arm under my arm. "And you fought the urge all the way across the floor." "Maybe." I was fixed on her dark, alluring eyes. "You just look wonderful." She walked me to the brass railing above the gaming tables. "I often think of that time we had at Barsoom. I don't think I've ever felt so far away, leaving my whole life somewhere else." She kept her arm locked. Her touch was warm and charged my body with just an inkling of the thrill I had experienced 10 years ago. "Let me guess, as usual, you're here on business." "I am." "Was sorry to hear about the death of your father. He founded a great empire in Amalgamated Sureties." Moisture glazed her eyes and her arm tightened. "Father died before his time. None of us expected it." I was always amazed at how he inspired people. I heard the pep talks when he was the main speaker that night we met. "People, when properly following instructions, are the heart and soul of any operation." She turned like a window scanner, slowly panning, and released her arm, but held my hands. I want to go out, find a quiet place away from the fray and talk about old times, Harry. What about your dinner date?
You're my dinner date. What do you say?
I kick myself for having doubts when I earlier crossed the gambling floor. Her presence before me seemed like a dream. Sure,